At this moment, there is a debate over funding border security and the wall, also called, so that I give them a little bit of an out, steel slats. We don't use the word wall necessarily, but it has to be something special to do the job. Steel slats. I've made my position very clear. Any measure that funds the government must include border security. Has to. Not for political purposes, but for our country, for the safety of our community. This is not merely my campaign promise. This is the promise every lawmaker made. It is the solemn promise to protect and defend the United States of America, and it is our sacred obligation. We have no choice. For decades, Washington abandoned this commitment and allowed millions and millions of people to enter our country illegally and over the objections of the American people. No one voiced or voted for a policy. No one endorsed this policy, and no one ratified this policy. It was a total assault on our democracy itself. Illegal immigration costs our nation $275 billion a year. You hear many different numbers. You can say billions and billions, but the number that I hear most accurate is $275 billion a year at least, millions of jobs and thousands of innocent lives. In life, there are certain principles worth fighting for, principles that are more important than politics, party, or personal convenience. The safety and security and sovereignty of the United States is the most important principle of all. If we don't stand strong for our national borders, then we cease to be a nation, and we betray our commitment to the loyal citizens of our great country. I look forward to signing a bill that fulfills our fundamental duty to the American people. It is all about, and I say this in any way they want to hear it, it's all about America first. We have to put our country first. We have to put our people first. And we have to put safety first. So thank you all very much. And we'll be working on that, Mitch and Paul and Kevin and everybody, and we'll see what we can do. But hopefully that'll all come together. Now to the Farm Bill. We are proudly joined today by
there you heard the president's remarks, digging in his heels, staying firm on signaling not wanting to sign this short-term funding bill unless there is funding for the border wall. I want to bring in Charlie Dent, Brian Selter, Joshua Green to sort of unpack what we heard from the president. First to you, Charlie Dent, what is your reaction? The president clearly doubling down, saying that the border wall is of utmost importance, saying this isn't just a campaign promise, this is about national security.
Well, as a former member of Congress who actually served on the Homeland Security Committee and on the Appropriations Committee dealing with Homeland Security funding, I kind of resent this. I got to tell you, I was in Congress when we passed the Secure Fence Act that authorized over 700 miles of pedestrian and vehicular barriers on the southern border. We provided for detention beds, more Border Patrol agents. We've done a lot to improve the situation on the border. Now, when the president talks about a wall, he should be using the term operational control of the border. Is he talking about 2,000 miles of steel slats along the border, or is he talking about something less than that? I have not met one border security expert who has told me we need 2,000 miles of barrier on the southern border. Now, that said, he's not going to get $5 billion between now and tomorrow evening for the wall. So there's going to be a shutdown. The votes simply are not there in the Senate, and I doubt that the votes are there in the House. So I think he's got to get realistic. And if he wants a real deal, he could have had a deal on border security with DACA, but he walked away from it. So at some point, I think he's got to be serious and realistic about his demands in this late hour.
Joshua, your reaction?
Well, I think Trump has been backed into a corner here, right? There were signs over the last few weeks. People in the administration had laid the groundwork for some kind of a fig leaf, some kind of a hedge where maybe it would be border security, it wouldn't be the wall per se. And then what happened was there was a revolt among the kind of right-wing cable pundits, people like Ann Coulter, whose approval Trump deeply cares about. I think that singed him, that forced him to back into a corner. We heard in these remarks just now, Trump gave absolutely no sign that he was about to compromise with Democrats. The problem is he needs Democratic votes to keep the government open, and at least as of now, it doesn't look like he's going to get them.
And it just shows you, Brian Seltzer, to your point, Josh, of the power of conservative media and the Freedom Caucus for that matter.
The power, that's right, of the Freedom Caucus and conservative media together. The president's message there was, be afraid, be very afraid. And most Americans aren't. Most Americans are not afraid of what he was describing, this so-called threat that he sees and portrays from Mexico. However, many members of his base are very concerned, and that is because those concerns are stoked every day by right-wing media. So I think it's notable the president thinks this is a winning issue for him, even though we just had a midterm election. The president made this his main message right up in the midterms, and the GOP lost in a big way in the midterms. He still believes this is a winning issue for him, and he still is being supported by those right-wing media voices. Rush Limbaugh, for example, challenging the president to do something. And then what did Trump do this afternoon? He sent a message to Limbaugh reassuring him, yes, I will shut down the government if I have to. So the president is being influenced by these TV and radio voices, and that is a big part of the reason why we may see the government shut down.
It really is amazing when some of these personalities go on Fox, make the case to the president, and then shortly after he tweets, like we saw this morning, where all of a sudden out of nowhere he tweeted signaling that he wouldn't sign it, that border funding is a priority. So Charlie Dent, I want to give you the final word. Where do we go from here?
Well, this is really what is so sad, that the loudest, shrillest voices that are intent on shutting down the government, they don't give a damn about, running the country. That's not their business. They have a business model. They're trying to drive their ratings and clicks and eyeballs, and shutting down the government is good for them. It's bad for the country. So bottom line is the president and members of Congress have to tune out these fringe elements that are hell-bent on shutting down the government, and legislators have a responsibility to keep the government functioning, and they ought to just cut the deal they can cut right now and be done with it and come back to fight another day.
All right. Thank you all. We do appreciate it.